Lords of the Fallen is filled with some incredible weapons that are not only fun to use, but actually pretty unique. So instead of making a build video for every single one, I thought I'd give you a bunch of them in one video so you can make your own builds, and I'll show you where to find them as well. Let's go! Let me know in the comments your favorite weapon, and we'll start with Ravager Gregory's sword. This is a grand sword that does physical, holy, and wither damage, which is really unique that it does two of these like special damage types. And it is sort of a heavy weapon, being that, you know, it requires 30 strength and 30 radiance in order to actually like wield it and equip it properly. But it's a fantastic weapon for any sort of radiance slash like strength hybrid, which I am working on a build that's a strength and radius hybrid, so we might actually use this for it. But it has really good strength and radiance scaling when you do max this out, leaving it at a plus, which is really good as a lot of the weapons don't actually reach that mark. And not only is like the grand swords just have a solid attack animation, and being able to stagger enemies because you're hitting them with such a heavy weapon is also really good. In order to grab this weapon, you'll need to start from the Ale House vestige in the lower Calrath area. So from here, essentially you'll want to run sort of along like the main path that you typically would travel. Like if you were just playing the game, you'll pass the burning tree, and when you come past the bonfire, you just keep going up the normal path. And once you get across the bridge, you want to turn left and use the umbral realm to like pass through a gate that doesn't exist in the umbral realm, and then there'll be a ladder that you can unlock here to actually go back to the vestige if you wanted to, and then you'll need to climb up to the roof, and you'll find an item up on this roof once you have beaten the guys up here, and then you'll need to grab the Ravager Gregory's rosary and take that to Exacta Dunmar back at Skyrest. Once you've given it to him, you'll then just need to rest so that his like inventory stock refreshes, and then go back to him and he'll sell you the sword plus the armor set that links with it as well. Next we have the Fallen Lord's sword, which is another grand sword, funnily enough, but this one is entirely Inferno based and one of the best Inferno weapons in the game, hands down. It has a great amount of physical scaling as well as fire damage, but it also does 300 ignite build up, so you'll be able to trigger that ignite like fire effect on enemies very regularly with this weapon. It also only scales with Inferno, so if you're not using say a strength or agility hybrid build or something like that, you're just using an Inferno build, this is a fantastic weapon to use for those sort of setups. Plus it also will occasionally do like this little fire explosion on the ground when you hit enemies. It doesn't happen every single time you use this like attack, but it does happen most of the time, and I don't know why it doesn't even tell you it does this, but it's a really solid weapon just because of that, and getting that AoE potential to like knock enemies back and just deal extra damage is always good, and it helps a lot with a lot of enemies that are resistant to fire damage, just giving you like that extra damage buff as well, just on top of the damage it already does. Now, in order to get this weapon, you essentially start in the exact same place at the Ale House, and you'll take that exact same path all the way past the burning tree and then up into that next section across the rooftops, and then once you have crossed the burning bonfire, you actually will climb the ramp and then take a left into the umbral realm, climb an umbral ladder and up the stairs, and then on a corpse here is where you'll actually find it. So it's a very similar path, it's just that you need to cross into the umbral realm in order to pass the fire to grab this weapon. Rosamund's sword is a long sword that does physical and wither damage while also dealing frostbite buildup, and frostbite is a really strong status effect in this game because when you get hit by it, right, it like lowers your stamina, which is fantastic if you want to use it in like PvP, but it also does like a massive chunk of like health damage when that pop effect goes off. And this weapon scales with strength, agility, radiance, and Inferno. It's a really unique weapon as it scales with all of them, but it does scale with radiance and Inferno more than strength and agility. So if you are sort of deciding what you want to do with this weapon, that's the two stats that I would focus on, but it does end up with C scaling and strength and agility eventually. But this is just like a fun weapon with really good overall like handling, being that it is a long sword. You could two-hand it, you could put a sword and like board in your second hand, something like that. I was going to use this weapon in my like umbral build that went out the other day. I'll link that here if you guys want to watch that, and you can definitely use it in a build like that. It's perfect for like those umbral builds that use both radius and Inferno and having those sort of a setups. Plus the frostbite is really good on this weapon as well, so it actually is a really good standout weapon that doesn't seem that good initially because it, you know, it scales with all of the stats, but focus on those umbral stats, the radius and Inferno, and you'll definitely have great success with this weapon. If you're looking to grab at this weapon, it actually comes from a similar area as the previous two, except at the previous area, like the last vestige point where you fight the enchantress boss, just after you get to that area, you'll essentially follow like the normal like progression path. You can obviously avoid all of the enemies here, and as you get to the area where you need to enter the umbral realm to like cross the bridge, you actually can turn around here, and there's like one of those eye thingies that you'll need to like unlock by self-laying the creature thingies, you know what I mean. And then after you go through that area, there's a belly pod in there that will actually drop this item so you can grab it from there. Kugajin's sword is a short sword that does bleed build up. It also does poison build up, and it has really good physical scaling. Now, this weapon is primarily an agility weapon, even though it does have some strength scaling. So if you're looking to do some sort of a dual wielding build with like short swords like I did for my Inferno bleed build, then this is a fantastic weapon to use in that sort of a combo, because it does both bleed and poison build up, which are both great status effects, especially poison to trigger on bosses, so you just get that damage over time effect. It's great because you can use it in a dual wield setup. You could sword and board it, you could two-hand it. There's a lot of flexibility with this sword that you can use, and it does have pretty low requirements, and you can get it very early in the game, being from the Forsaken Fen. It comes from an NPC here that you'll need to locate, and there's sort of hidden behind like some vines, and you'll follow like that same progression path you typically would, go underneath that big root with the fire near it, and in this little like corner near a vestige seed location is where you'll actually find the NPC. They'll be frozen in stone. Now you can kill them and just get the sword, or you can go and complete their storyline, which I accidentally killed them, so I don't have them in my game, but you can actually complete their storyline. If you want to actually like free them, you'll need to use like a healing spell next to them, and it'll actually free them. Behind them as well, there is actually a really good radius catalyst that you can grab once you have freed them or killed them. But if you just want the sword, you can just, and then you can grab the sword right there. Blacksmith's Pride comes a little bit later in the game, but I wanted to give something that's a little bit different, because I've given you like some big swords for like Radius and Inferno sort of builds. I've given you a sort of two-handed weapon like the Kugajin sword. I wanted to give you like a shield and weapon setup, and I found this one, and I think it's actually really good for this sort of a build. So Blacksmith Pride is a flail that deals physical and wither damage, but it also does frostbite buildup, which we already discussed how great that is. It does scale with agility and Inferno, which is a little bit odd because it is like a wither, sort of a umbral focused weapon. But so if you were say maybe building some sort of an umbral setup, it won't balance as well, but it's definitely great for like an agility and Inferno build here. And because of that frostbite buildup, we've already talked about how good that is, and it does finish with really good scaling once you have maxed out this weapon. Now, if you want to grab this weapon, it comes from a little bit later in the game in Upper Kelreth from the vestige of the Forgotten Guardian, which you can grab after you have climbed a certain elevator. And essentially from this, you just want to leave, turn left, and go into the Umbral Realm. There'll be some enemies here that you'll probably need to defeat, because you might not be able to grab it without doing it. And then there's like a belly pod there that you can flay to be able to grab the weapon, and you're essentially good to go. I've got one more bonus one for you guys, and we're doing Catalyst in a separate video about spells, which will be coming out very soon. But I wanted to cover a bow because I feel like bows don't get enough love, and the bow of Convert is actually really, really cool. So this bow does bleed buildup, it also does fire buildup, it also does poison buildup, and it does physical, holy, fire, and wither damage. It does literally all of the things. It's really cool. So this bow is not maybe the highest scaling in terms of its overall damage. It's just like fun to use, especially even any sort of a status effect build, like if you're using poison arrows or bleed arrows or something like that, and an agility focused build, it's really beneficial to have. Now, if you want to grab this bow, you'll need to start from the depot again, as we talked about a little bit earlier, and follow that exact same path that we just covered, where you just zoom all the way through like the main progression path. And at that same sort of point where you eventually went into the Umbral Realm, you'll still need to enter the Umbral Realm, but follow the main progression path across that bridge. Just be careful of the enemies here, as there is like heaps of them. And then you can leave the Umbral Realm if you want, just to avoid some enemies, and then up the stairs and around the corner, you'll find the bow on a corpse there that you can grab and be able to use. And it's a really solid weapon, and I didn't want to let my bow homies out there down. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What's your favorite weapon in Lords of the Fallen? Thank you guys for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is NorZZa, and I hope you have a great day.